From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team. Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson, we're back again.
All right.
I just went to an HPDE and I think I got a lot better, actually, a lot faster. Learned a lot. One of the things that the instructor said that then I went and applied it on the track and I dropped significant amounts of time. He said, this is Robin from the NASA Great Lakes HPDE 3. He said that it's better to drive with 100% commitment a bad line than to go on the perfect line but not be committed 100%.
Probably sounds pretty good to me. I mean, at least go hard, and then refine it from there. But if you're going to be timid, if you're going to be the world's quietest rock drummer, you're never going to be John Bonham.
Well, thanks. No, I don't know where to go, but we're going to keep going. So
I'm just saying that as far as taking the timid, very under control approach, but you're parking your car on the exact spot where you park your car, I guess, on the track. Mm-hmm. That does, you're not really accomplishing much. Is that sort of what he's getting at? Like, even if you were to commit to
I think just try and go, and if you miss your apex by 6 inches, do it hard, do it fast, and
I think there's some value to that. There's no value to going a very comfortable speed and putting the car exactly where it needs to be every time and not getting any faster. So you're talking about even at the DE 1, 2, and 3 level, there are plenty of people who don't approach it as hard as they should as far as the pace and maxing out what the car can do on track.
Right. So what about you, Miss Jen? What do you think? Is it are you at the stage? Are you at a stage where you worry about the line and you want to hit the line, or are you at a stage where you want to go fast and more or less close is good enough right now? Or
no, I am, and the last HPDE we did, I spent, and I mentioned this before, I spent most of the time trying to get the perfect line because I just wanted to, I wanted to get the perfect line. I just wanted to know the feeling of going in and out of a turn the right way.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because I wanted that to be so natural. So yeah, I mean, I really wasn't focused on just, going and pushing the car and going as fast as I can. But I really kind of wanted to get the feeling of it being right. Do you know what I mean? Like I want that to be second nature for me.
Right. Right.
So I can't identify what I'm doing wrong if I don't know what I'm doing right. Does that make sense?
What you're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to completely devalue the idea of being exactly on the right line at a relatively slow pace. That's what you're doing at the levels of DE driving where you are right now. Just that's pretty natural to be wanting to naturalize the line. But if Bill is encountering an instructor at his level where he was running DE3 at Audubon last weekend, and that person is saying, hey, listen, I don't care if you're hitting it exactly right, but at this level, you need to be hitting it pretty hard as far as pace-wise, and then refining your line from there, because this person is presupposing that Bill has already been through the more basic steps of saying, all right, here's where you put the car, and always be in the right place and be safe, and you run at a relatively low speed. This person is talking to Bill at a different experience level.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way he put it was, we want you to push from driving as fast as you're comfortable with and go past that and go to where you can get to and try to really get some speed out of the car versus driving at a comfortable, safe pace and not pushing it. So that was kind of the mindset I was trying to break, because to be honest, I've never pushed in a race, in an endurance race, because it's an endurance race, so I've never gone what I would consider my 10/10ths, because the car needs to go for 18 hours or whatever the race is for, and I wanted everybody to get in the car. And honestly, at 10/10ths in the races that we're involved in, there's too many people, there's too much going on the track. You kind of got to back it down a little bit, and it's more important to do a lap than to save a fraction of a second on one lap and do more laps. So this was the first weekend where I actually ever really said, okay, let's see what we can do here. And it was kind of fun.
Yeah, you saw the window open to where, like, hey, that's where the fast people are. I can see my way to being over there.
It might be somewhere in front of me. It might actually be possible. So it was it was fun.
That's cool. That's really cool.
It was. Miss Vicky, what's your thoughts here?
I try to stay on the line. If I can fight for the line, I'll fight for the line. Mm-hmm. If it's available to me.
You mean fight for the line?
If there's there's a line on the track, obviously, that you race on. If I have that line or I can get to the line, I will be on that line. Unless there's traffic will force me off the line.
Why would you be off the line?
Sloppy driving.
So you're passing everybody, them or they're passing you?
Because we race in a different circuit to where people don't even know about a line. So if I am racing in the HPDE, I stick to the line or I pass off the line, and do what you can. If it's an organized race, stay to the line. But in Lemons, there is no organized line. There's hopefully, when you get into a certain cluster and towards the end of the weekend, for the better drivers and the better cars, there will be a line that will emerge and there will be organized racing. But for the most part, in our circuit of racing, I fight for the line, stay on the line if I can. And if I go off the line, I just kind of work it to where I work my way back.
So right now at your progression level, you're more concerned about the line than the speed.
I want to drive properly because I know no other way. If I go offline, then I feel like it'll throw all my turns off and it'll throw off my speed in my racing. But
so think about what Robin's saying though. So Robin is trying to get the point across that even go hard, even if you're on the wrong line, you're going to learn something by going hard on the wrong line. So it sounds like if you're talking about having to be offline and drive and try to fight to get back online, you could learn a lot about being fast, even in adverse line conditions.
You race all you can. Lemons certainly kind of forces that on you when you race in that.
Right, and it sounds like this Robin character is sort of reinforcing an approach that would let you realize, like, oh, hey, here's how you can be fast even if you're a little bit offline, and then as you refine yourself into the more optimal line in a DE setting, you learn, like, hey, I could still be pretty fast, even if I'm not.
But
at
some point, you still have to force your way back onto a certain line in order to hit those turns. You have to. If not, you're going to really screw things up. So.
Sure, but there's an optimal line,
right? But
it's essential.
Certain parts of that track you can get away with racing all out and not being on that line as long as you get back into it before you hit that turn.
That's so true. At the S's at VIR, there are pretty much 3 lanes into there, and as long as doesn't matter which lane you enter from, as long as you hit it at the right point as you go in, you're fine. So you can get there from 3 different ways, pretty much.
Okay.
What about you?
Me?
Everybody else? Everybody got their questions answered on that?
Well, I found maybe it was where I was in my progression, but I found that being robotically following the line, I was giving up time on the track that I could get faster by, hey, if I miss this apex, whatever, but I'm on the gas, or I'm right where I can carry more speed, and if I miss this one apex and it's not a bad apex to miss, or going onto a long straight or whatever, I was able to get my lap times to drop significantly by becoming less concerned about the line and more concerned about throttle and braking.
Right.
And,
so you're saying you're less beholden to exact car placement.
Yes.
And more beholden to, I have got to be back on this gas. I got to get this wheel open, and we'll figure it out. Yeah, figure it out better next time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, if I carry more speed in and into the next turn, and I haven't done this before, and I use the same brake point, I'm going to be off.
Yeah, you have to compensate, and it's not going to be pretty, right?
And I'll do it, and I'll do the best I can this time, and I'll accommodate to that the next time. But it got me significantly, like, plus 1, maybe 2 seconds a lap, which on a 140 something track, 1 or 2 seconds is a lot. It's 1 or 2%. It's basically a 100-second lap.
Yeah, this is an approach to try sort of at a certain point along your arc of development, along your sort of your spectrum of development as a driver, where it's a good plateau breaker too, to sort of be at a point where you're like, I think I got this pretty smooth. I'm putting the car exactly where it needs to be every time I go out. Then that's the time that buzzer should go off in your brain and go, all right, I'm going to try to carry 3 more miles an hour under my turn in. I'm going to release the brakes. When I was turning in, I was letting out the brakes when I was carrying 65 miles an hour into the corner. I'm going to try to carry 68. I'm going to let the brakes off when I got the same place, but I'm going to go in a little bit deeper and a little bit harder. And I'm going to try to roll in with 3 more miles an hour and see what happens. But there's always kind of a time to push a little bit extra, and you might result in a couple of ugly corners until you get a little bit faster, which is fine. It's okay to kind of run a little weird line as you're trying to sort of push your limits, because you're going to learn a lot from that too.
And you can adjust on your next one, saying, hey, I carried more speed in. I pushed that one wide, and I carried it way out and missed the apex. So I'm going to need to back things up a little bit, or hit things a little harder. And
I tried to go 10 miles an hour faster, and it pushed me off a little bit. I didn't go off track, so maybe I'll try 5 miles an hour faster.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of fun. I had a good time.
It makes a lot of sense.
Hopefully. It sounded like a Ben way. So I was like, I figured Ben was going to be all over this. He's like, yeah, just hit it.
I'm always like, try a little more than you think you can get away with. If you're at a plateau, just try a little bit deeper, a little bit earlier with the throttle. Maybe try a little more violent turn. Whatever it is, whatever you're too comfortable with, try a little more of it.
More is better.
A little bit.
There we go. Thank you, Ben.
All right.
Thanks, Ben.
Dominating with Dawson.
So, Ben, we've got another one. We've noticed the importance of not only having a proper seat, but the proper placement of the seat, and even the mirror adjustments impact our racing and our enjoyment of racing, even an HPDE day, not just racing.
Sure.
Tremendously. And I don't know that people recognize how important that is.
Well, I think just last week we were talking about a fellow you met at Mid-Ohio who had a Miata. He was racing as a pretty tall guy with a stock seat in a Miata. And I was shocked to hear that, because I'm a pretty tall guy. He used to have a Miata. And I think before I even did my first autocross, I had slapped a bucket racing seat bolted to the floor so I could get low enough in the car to put a roll bar in. So the different people have different priorities about what to install when. But like for me, before I went and did anything in that Miata, I was like, I'm not ending up upside down in some field in this Miata trying to dodge cones without a roll bar and a real race seat and harnesses. So for me, seat placement was essential before I even turned to competitive lap in that car, on the autocross course. So I think it's essential to get yourself in the right place for safety, but also for driving ergonomics as well. What do you think?
Well, I think the girls typically have the most complaints about our seats, so I'm going to let them take the lead on this one and prepare to be batted about the head.
Oh, okay, so I got it. So we're doing an axe grinding one. So we're grinding an axe.
No,
Let's
no
chop
axe
this baby.
grinding.
No, I mean I said let's chop his head off.
But it does need problem solving.
Things that we've learned through the hard way.
Okay, I have installed a bunch of seats. Let's talk about it.
All right. So the issue is that we all greatly differ in size.
Okay. So what kind of inserts are you using?
I use Pop-Tarts and Slurpees.
Okay.
Yes. So there is some paddings that we either sit on or like a back piece that will push us a little bit more forward.
Pillows, basically.
Yeah, well, they're not pillows, but they're pads, race pads that will do. But what we didn't know was that pads that could actually help sides. So, do seats have like
inserts?
Can I finish? But is there pieces that can fit around a seat for a person, or should seats be adjusted per car per person? This is a new concept for me. Didn't even know it existed.
There are a few different ways to make up the gap between drivers of different size. And another one side note to think about is, even if Bill and I are the same height, I may have a long torso and he may have super long legs and a short torso. So that's a whole different kind of seating scenario too. So you can't just look at a bunch of drivers of the same height and say, hey, we're all going to fit the same car either, because somebody might have weird proportions. So you have to try to fit everybody in the car, and ways that you can make it work is you can have your seat on sliders, which is legal in some series and acceptable to some people. I think in our car we used to have them. Never in the Miata, because you can't. I mean, there's no reason to move that anywhere. But in our E30, I think we had a seat on sliders. But we kind of got to a point where we decided this car is getting fast enough where we don't want to risk a failure of the seat being in the right place because it ripped out the slider or something like that. So we have that seat hard mounted too. So my preference is to hard mount a seat and sort of make it up if you need to use special inserts or something like that, molded inserts for drivers, or just sort of suck it up. And reach for the pedals. I don't mind driving with my knees in my chest. I'm comfortable driving kind of cramped. So if we need to have the seat a little closer than I would ideally have, I don't mind doing that, because I don't want somebody to have to drive, with the belts loose, just trying to reach out so they can reach, fully depress a pedal. So there has to be a happy medium, and folks have to be willing to compromise a little bit. And I think in most cases, the tallest people need to be ready to compromise for the shortest folks. If you're not using things like they are poured molded inserts. So somebody sits down and they pour like this foam around you and a trash bag looking thing. I don't know the detail on how to do it. You guys are going to have a future podcast guest who's going to tell you all about that. But that's the basic idea, is that you want to kind of use these molded inserts if the seat is fixed, and you have to have a big variety of sizes of drivers, sizes and heights, and that sort of thing. What do you think about that?
I didn't know they existed. I mean, are they purchased? I mean, are they foam? Are they molded foam that it's almost like a
padding
per person? I mean, like literally.
Yeah. So you sit down. I guess they have you sit down where you need to be in the seat, and I guess you're in the seat, and then they pour this material around you, and it sets up, and so you end up being where you need to be, and then they, after that they cut it out of the trash bag, or it stays in there. But you end up with this kind of not hard foam, but foam that's dense enough to keep you safe, but also just to be a spacer in between the seat and you, to get you close enough to the steering wheel and the pedals and the instruments. So that does exist, and there are formalized devices that can be shaped to your actual torso. So you're going to have a guest on pretty soon who can tell you more about that, I think, if I can get in touch.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think that is probably one of the reasons why Jennifer actually got the injury that she did.
Say more right now.
Was that we have a seat that has to accommodate so many different sizes of people. So we actually, when we were sizing it, do I fit in it? Does Jennifer fit in it? Bill and I are a little bit wider than Jennifer. And then, of course, we have our one driver who is 6'4", you know, so these are extreme sizes that we're talking. So trying to make a one seat fits all is almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but extremely difficult. So I think maybe when Jennifer had gone out, she didn't have the proper padding around her to accommodate a seat that would cause her not to wiggle.
Sure, that's
the straps were tight. I mean, they were, you know,
yeah, the straps were tight.
And I don't remember, and that's the thing is I don't remember like my body hitting that. Like, you know, it was just a little twinge I felt after I got out. But,
no, you need to be secured by the entire seat. Like, it's not enough to be just sort of in a seat where there's a lot of space between you and the side bolsters. It just be snug down the belts. Like, the belts aren't going to keep you from, you know, vibrating in the seat.
It's a sideways thing.
yeah.
If it's true that there was that much of a difference where you're kind of just in there and there's a lot of space side to side, you definitely would have benefited from some sort of insert to make you more secure in the seat. But also, I want to make sure when we talk about how tight the belts are, I hope that everybody that I'm talking to here and folks that are listening understand, like, your race car belts need to be so tight you can hardly breathe. Like, everybody's got that, right? You need to be uncomfortable in those belts. Like, you need to be tight, right?
And tighten them during the stint because they stretch a little bit.
Keep tightening them. Check to make sure your headphones didn't fall out, your speaker, your mic cord didn't fall out. But yeah, it's always a great idea to check them every 20 minutes or so during the stint because they get loose. They sort of work loose. So that's always something to keep in the back of your head is checking on your belts and making sure they're so tight you can barely breathe. That's how they work.
So it's not just important to have the front to back. If the seat travels, you got to have front to back. It's not only important to have it tight or properly spaced there, but you also need to be tight side to side. There's a containment type seat versus the open type seats. You can look at those. There's lots of options, and I think we're going to, especially after Jennifer got hurt, we're going to take a look at what we're doing, and we've got another team we're working with that's going to be pouring us some seats. So we're going to have a custom seat made for Vicky once we know what seat we're putting in the car. And as soon as we can get Jennifer there, we'll have a seat for Jennifer. And what'll happen is on pit changes, when, let's say, I'm getting out of the car and Jennifer's getting in the car, when she's the next driver, she's going to bring over not just the gas, not just the fire extinguisher, but she's going to have her seat. And we're going to pop out, plop that seat in there, and then she's going to get into the racetrack, race car. Yeah,
and there's some folks you'll see people doing pit changes and lemons and any kind of thing where it's different drivers getting into the same car, where the insert might be something that looks as small as a phone book, or it might look like something that just kind of covers somebody's back, or it might be something that looks like like another little seat that's going to go in the car. So it could be anything, but the idea is to have your body as encapsulated as tightly in the seat as you can. And I also recommend anybody that can fit a containment or a halo seat in their car, do it. It's a little more expensive, but I mean, we're talking about the difference between a serious injury, perhaps. The containment seat can help limit your head travel side to side, because even if you're running a Hans device is only going to limit your travel forward and backwards as far as your neck. It doesn't really help you side to side. So that's where a containment seat comes into play, and it costs more money and it's tougher to fit in a small car like a Miata, but figure it out. Get a containment seat in your car.
And if the seat is tight, like if the seat fits you properly, it actually helps you go faster because you can feel more. And you can go longer because it takes less energy to stay stable. You don't have to worry about, forcing yourself to sit upright or forcing yourself not to slide side to side. You're
not fighting the car. You're not fighting the momentum with your body. You're fully snugly encapsulated. All you got to do is operate. It's a great feeling.
What are you guys thinking?
No, I think that's a great idea. I know that seat that was in the BMW, it had a very wide top, like behind the back. Yeah,
it was like a butterfly almost.
Yeah,
looking.
And it didn't really have any cushion on it. So I'm not certain whether I hit the roll bar or the edge of that seat. But again, like I don't feel like what we did was wrong, because I mean,
it's just better.
Because,
it was better.
I don't even know if it would have, if there was anything that we could have done that day with that seat that would have made any difference. Do you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like,
Sure.
because we just didn't know that about these other things. But like everything was right when I got in. Like you guys pulled down and like I was in there. So yeah, I don't know.
It's in there.
I was in there.
No,
Yeah.
and we're not saying that, you know,
Yeah.
this was done improperly or this is the reason. We're just saying, hey, if we have a way to do this better,
Yeah.
let's do it.
And you know what? Like we learned something. You know, I mean, there was a lot of things learned that weekend. It was a good weekend. It was team wise. Like there were a lot of things we learned. So yeah. I mean, it was just one more thing that, you know what, this could be better.
Yeah.
You know, like
Never walk away without learning something new.
exactly. I mean, whether it's about fuel pumps or
Yeah.
or seats, but
or that race bar doesn't eat anywhere nearly as good as we do. I think we've been drafted to be chefs, but we'll see.
That's why they did the hostile takeover. They took over our team too because we know how to go fast, and then the next thing you know, they take over you because you guys know how to cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it did feel kind of like a hostile takeover.
They've announced it. I get invoices. I get invoices from Race Bar on my email like once a month. I'm like, what? This is hilarious.
What are the invoices for?
No idea.
It's like golf club membership dues.
Yeah, I haven't paid one. I mean, don't be crazy. I'm not going to pay one. But it's just like, why am I getting invoices in the email?
You could just see Jandy sitting there typing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's no racing at Bushwood. So.
Yeah.
All right. Make sure your seat fits. Don't be sliding around.
Make sure your seat fits and make sure it doesn't move around. Make sure it's braced well. If it needs to be braced, if it needs to have a brace to the cage, make sure it's braced right. Or you understand the rules, the series you're running. Make sure you understand how your seat needs to fit and how your belts need to be routed around. Where they need to be tied. So make sure to read the rule book before you start building whatever you're building. Make sure your belts are tight.
And that is another thing, since you are bringing up belts, there is a certain way these belts have to be latched on. So make sure that you do understand how that happens.
Double wrapped and pinned.
Yes.
And my perspective on that whole thing, because a lot of people have asked me, like, what were you thinking when it was happening? And I got to say, like, I wasn't afraid.
That wall's
because
really
I knew that the safety equipment I had was secure. So like, it wasn't a fear of, oh, I'm going to get hurt, even though I got hurt. Like that wasn't one thing that crossed my mind. You know what I mean? It was just, what am I going to do? When's it going to stop?
Right.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
And then what am I going to tell Bill?
What am I going to tell Bill? But I the safety equipment I felt comfortable with. Like that wasn't a fear. So yeah.
Well, the only part of the car that didn't get bent is where the cage is. So it works.
Yeah.
Oh, so one thing before we go, I was watching a video in the last HPDE I was at, and they had an interview of Lewis Hamilton, and he was saying, because everything that he does applies to what we do. He was saying that he was really having trouble one year with the car. And then what they did was they raised his seat 5 millimeters, which if you know metric, that's like 1/4 of an inch. And then all of a sudden he could see everything and the racetrack just opened up to him. And it was only 1/4 of an inch. Now, granted, he's dealing with a much higher level of performance and demand, but make sure if you've got a seat that it's located properly. If it's got a slider, make sure it slides the whole way and covers as much as you can and does things so that it's doing it as it's designed. Don't have the seat mounted crooked front to back or side to side. If you can, put it as close to the inside as possible, because the outside's where things come from. There's certain things that you should do, and if it doesn't feel right, don't say, it's good enough, I want to go work on the engine. Fix the seat. It's important.
Absolutely. Get your safety stuff right. It's worth the effort. And luckily, most of us racing production-based cars can use the stock seat mounting points, at least as a guidance.
Yep. Seats. They're what hold you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben, I don't know if you know this, but there's this thing in your car that your hands hold on to. It's kind of round.
Mm-hmm.
And I see people, they've got the full, I'm at the beach, they're hanging their left arm on top and going around with their right hand holding the stick like they're, cruising the boardwalk.
Sure.
I see people who their hands can be anywhere on that steering wheel, wherever feels good. And then I see other people whose hands are at 9 and 3 and basically just don't move. And everybody who does it says their way is right. What are your thoughts in regard to this? Does it even matter?
Yes, to me it matters a lot. I'm a person who keeps my hands at 9 and 3 unless I'm shifting gears. And the little second it takes me to shift gear, my hands comes right back to my hands are always on the wheel. Both hands are always right there at 9 and 3. Maybe 9:30, 2:30, but like pretty much right there across. And for most of the driving that we're going to do on track, you might get close to a full crossover, but you're not going to be crossing over so much that you're twisting your arms up or anything like that. And if there is a big turn, sure, I will kind of let a little bit go, move the wheel in my hands a little bit for an extreme example of a big crossover turn. But for the most part, I'm able to just keep my hands like this and generate the rotation I need around a racetrack. There are fast people who will do what we call shuffle steer or hand over hand steering, where you're handing the wheel, moving the wheel within your hands, but not moving your hands very much. I guess I can't do it, and I don't think most of the people who operate at the top level do it that way either. So my opinion is that, and my method is to drive at 9 and 3.
So what's the downside of like sliding your hands on the wheel as opposed to staying in one spot?
Letting go of the steering wheel with one hand or both hands or ever. That's my thing. I'm not going to just kind of be shuffling the wheel around. Like I want to have really big time control, micro control over it all the time. And I don't need to move it between my hands. I need to just hold it and I can control it the way I need to a fine level. I'm not letting go of it.
Okay. And the other thing that I always worry about is if I start shuffling, and it's kind of how I was taught when I was in driver's ed, not HPDE, but like 17-year-old Bill.
Right.
You can lose track of where on the wheel your hands are, because I'm not looking at the wheel, I'm looking out the window, and that can be a problem, especially if you start getting into something like a skid or a spin. It's good to know where your wheels are pointed, because if you're off by 90 degrees, that's going to make a big difference on whether you go left or straight or right.
Yeah, that's happened to me. It's happened to me in the rain. I got in somebody's oil and I started spinning one way or the other, and the car was oscillating so quick I was just having to toss the wheel in my hands to try to keep it straight. And by the time I thought it was coming back to center and I had it, I was like one rotation off and the car shot over to the wall. But it was all happening so fast. I was sliding a huge slide this way, a huge slide that way. I'm just trying to keep up with the steering. I'm just tossing the steering wheel in my hand. So by the time I thought I was good to go, I was good to go to the wall.
Vicky, as our resident shuffle steerer.
Oh, sorry. I did not mean to be triggering anybody here.
It's okay. Sure, her microphone's not working, so this is perfect for me.
She's not saying anything anyway.
I know. This is awesome.
Yeah, she's really getting after it.
She is. She thinks we're joking that the microphone's not working, but
she's like, what?
Still not working.
Turn it on. Turn the mic on. Detach microphone.
Yeah,
do not speak into the nozzle.
Why don't you bounce out and bounce back in? It's still not working. No, seriously.
What about you, Jen? How do you like to steer the car?
Oh, I'm definitely a 9 and 3. Like my hands don't come off unless I shift. But see, going to the HPDEs, that is what they tell you, that you should just shift and come back.
Yep. Oh, I mean,
agree.
I'm always telling my students that if I have a student who is kind of lazy up putting their hand on the shifter, I'm like, get that hand on the wheel. So hopefully I'm driving people away from that if I'm in their car.
And the other thing, Vicky and I were Vicky was telling me she learned this at her last at Gingerman. We went to Gingerman, and I tried it, and it made perfect sense. Is when you're turning into like if you're going into an apex, to instead of pulling down on the steering wheel to kind of
Push it over.
Lift up.
Lift up,
Oh, yeah?
because
Yeah.
like pulling down, you tend to
Over
much.
pull, but lifting up, you have a
Yeah.
little bit more
Lifting it, yeah.
control.
right.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that before. That makes a lot of sense. You have more fine motor control if you're pushing than pulling, right?
And I
Mhm.
found with the Miata that worked really well going around. So
Yeah, when I was doing it, I had more of a sense of control of the turn than just trying to pull down and then trying to correct after I pulled down.
right.
But yeah, so that kind of really helped a lot.
Yeah. I think I'm always trying to, whichever way I'm going, I'm trying to push it, not pull it. I think that makes a lot of sense. I was trying to mime it in my head. I'm with you. I think you're
I thought you were practicing your drumming.
right.
Yeah, right.
So Miss Shuffle Steer,
I've been much better.
I've got video.
You've got old video.
I'm looking at new video. I'm sorry. You're much better.
Dang.
I know.
Yes.
You're instead of shuffling all the way around the wheel, now you're shuffling like 6 inches
Oh.
and regripping.
Do you wear gloves when you drive on DEs?
No.
You should wear your gloves when you drive at a DE also. But I was just thinking maybe like a different colored, one colored glove, like do something weird, some sort of visual cue to help remind you not to do it. I don't know.
Might not be a bad
tape,
time.
tape on the steering wheel, like some kind of crazy thing that says "Don't shuffle steer."
It's
That would be good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a habit
is.
for sure.
It's a habit. Yeah.
So Vicky, do you see the issue with doing it, or do you just are you conscious you're doing it? Do you not know you're doing it?
No, I'm not conscious I'm doing it.
Okay.
So I'm going to send Vicky a life affirming video of a really fast guy doing it who is a NASA regional director. So I'm not saying you can't do it. This guy wins national championships. It's just my personal. Right. I'm just saying it's my personal preference not to go to the wheel. And I have a strong prejudice against shuffle steering. But just like the fact that there are people who never rev match, who go out and win SCCA championships, and people who who never heel toe, that sort of thing. People who never left foot brake and only right foot brake. I mean, there are plenty of things that we all do like to burnish and polish our driving, but also there are people who are not doing that stuff who whip my ass any day. So just be aware. These things are good to have, not essential. And I'm just saying a strong preference. But so I will send you a video of a guy doing shuffle steer, and you'd be like, "Holy crap, that guy is burning it up." So
Thank you. I would
there's
appreciate
also
that.
Sure.
See, normally when I drive on the road, I always shovel steer. Like I never, but now like I really just driving to work, I try to keep my hands, like I try to be very conscious of it because like to me, I want it to be like a muscle memory thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other thing is I'm always watching my thumbs. I always have to remind myself about my thumbs.
That you have them?
That I'm not supposed to wrap my thumbs around the steering wheel. I'm supposed to lay them on top of the steering wheel.
Okay. I think I know what you're saying. So, Ross Bentley, who was on the podcast a while back, who may be coming back actually.
Cool.
One of the things that he says that I prefer to think about, especially since we aren't paid to drive, so we drive a whole lot more on the street than we do on the track, even though I'd much rather drive on the track than on the street. But he says the only reason to drive on the street is to practice for when you're at the track.
Yep.
So if you can drive the way and get the habits on the street, then your driving on the track will be much better. So practice your rev matching. Don't shuffle steer. Don't hook your left elbow on the side of the car. Just get rid of all those habits. And then that'll make things more natural so you have less to think about when you're at the track.
I agree 100. I do that. I mean, that's one of the big reasons why I drive around the stick all the time. Is because I'm always kind of low key practicing for the track. I mean, I'm the last guy braking for a stoplight. I'm sure people behind me are like, is that guy ever gonna hit the brakes? But I mean, I hit the brakes for a tiny amount of time. I stop. You can balance an egg on my hood. I'm not stopping so hard that my hood is like slamming up and down when I come to a stop. I mean, I don't think I appear too crazy except for if you're looking at my brake lights. But I drive like a mini track day everywhere. I don't speed. I mean, I might go 5 over or something like that. But as far as getting up to that point, I drive like a maniac. I'm rev matching. If I'm downshifting, even if I'm downshifting to a stop sign, I'm rev matching just to practice.
And one of the things that we've done is, Jen's got a stick daily driver now.
Awesome. What are you driving?
It's one of our BMWs. Just because, and I think it's helped.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because at the track you don't have to think about.
Right.
That's one less thing to worry about. It's
that
natural.
was huge. Like when I tell you I knew nothing, I knew nothing.
That's great. I think that's awesome that you're driving a car that's similar to what you're going to race, even if it's just the mechanics of shifting gears is a great idea. I mean, I live and die by that.
Yeah, that probably has been the biggest help for me. Yeah.
That and the HPDEs. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, shuffle steer. It's not good.
Probably won't kill you.
Won't kill you.
Not kill you.
But it's not. It doesn't help you. So why do it?
Dominating with Dawson.
Welcome back, Ben. We've got a question for you. Vicky and Jennifer have been in HPDE 1 for 2 different times this summer. They've been in it before. They are acclimating to what they're trying to instruct them to at the level that they're at. However, I'm a little concerned in that they're starting to get married to one of the principles in HPDE 1 that it doesn't really apply once you get a little bit further. And I want to make sure that they don't get locked in on this. What they're hearing is brake all of your braking in a straight line, stop your braking, then turn in, get to the apex, start to finish your turn, and then apply the throttle again. So all their inputs are separate and there's nothing in between. It's very digital, like a ABC approach. And I'm concerned that that's going to become ingrained. And I'm concerned as they progress, because that's not what I understand you would do as you progress in your driving career.
That's a tough one. I understand why HPDE organizations would prioritize learning in a very structured way, with like a crawl before you can walk, which is where you guys are like they have you at like tummy time to try to pull up sort of area. But yeah, I can understand why they do it. When I started doing HPDEs with road course stuff, it was the same way. Like it was like, all right, brake, get it all done, turn in. Okay, everything was very much meted out, and definitely like looking at how I drive now, it's not structured in any way like that at all. I'm just trying to yank the car around as fast as I can, and as soon as I get back on the gas, I'll be on the gas anywhere. I'll shift the gears anywhere. Like there's no structure to what I do now, but I started out that way, and as I was starting out, that made a lot of sense to me. Because I was just trying to kind of put together a whole lap on the track. That sort of made sense to me. But then again, I think it was maybe my second DE weekend. I went and rode with this guy who was an instructor and racer, and he had a third gen RX-7 that would do like 150 down the backstretch of the hour. It was even like it was a passenger car, but he took me out, and I saw like the first time I saw the way he chucked it down through like down through Hogpen and stuff like that. And we had been taught to brake in a straight line to get down into it. He just goes just straight down through the whole thing. Nothing was. I was like, okay, maybe it doesn't have to be quite as structured as my instructor was telling me. And then as I went into further HPD experience level groups, you sort of shift focus away from doing everything, everything separately. You sort of start blending things together. And by the time you're advanced, they're talking about maybe being on the throttle and the brake at the same time sometimes.
Could you imagine if they told us not to do the 4 inputs or the 4 structures in HPDE 1?
Hilarious.
Could you imagine all the spin outs that would be happening all over
But
that?
I also feel like part of that is feeling the car. Do you know what I mean? And feeling what it's capable of and what you can get away with. And you can't just go out there knowing that. It's something that comes with experience. You know what I mean? Like doing it enough and kind of testing it out. And so I understand why they do that too, because it would be
a hot mess.
Awful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
Yeah.
I also should say, I also didn't reveal this part of this teaching methodology, but I don't teach people that way. Like when I'm an instructor, unless I'm like, this guy or gal is not going to get this whole weekend, I can tell it immediately. Then I'm like, all right, breaking a straight line turn, I just kind of turn off for the whole weekend. But if it's somebody who's got control of the car, I'll kind of teach them like, hey, this is what people are gonna expect you to do. So we'll do it that way a little bit, like a session or two. But then once I can tell this person can control the vehicle and wants to have fun and get faster, we start to branch off of that, even if it's a relative novice, run group. So just as a data point, like I will usually show people that a little bit, just explain that somebody else might expect you to do this, but here, let's go do it the way you would actually do it if you're racing the car. I just always assume if somebody's in the car with me, I just treat them like they want to be a race car driver. So that's my 2 cents on my individual input.
Jen, could you imagine that one day that's going to come at some point when we're actually fired up down the racetrack and we're sliding around the corner? That would be awesome.
It will be fun.
Goals. It's so much fun.
Jennifer started.
Yep. Jennifer got there before me.
That's great.
So I guess where I was going was not that it's not a technique and it's not a viable teaching technique. I just wanted to make sure that Vicky and Jennifer were aware that eventually you can still be on the brake as you're turning in, and you can be getting to the gas before the apex. You don't have to.
Right. It's a training wheels. It's a training wheels methodology. So something you learn and work a little bit, but then you work through very quickly. I should hope. I mean, I've peppered you people with enough videos that you should know that nobody out there that's fast is doing that, right?
Correct. Lots of pepper in those videos.
Yep.
So Miss Vicky.
Yes, sir.
Every time we start talking, you start saying one input, one and only input. But you got to be open to it. Eventually, you're going to do more than one.
Okay. I'll be ready for that some point.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to. There's this thing called trail braking. It's not bad.
You can roll your eyes because I always roll my eyes at it too because I'm never thinking about trail braking. I'm sure I do it.
Yeah, I'm sure you do it. It's just you're not thinking about it. So I'm at my first HPDE. It's pouring buckets. Liam's there. He's just got his permit like 3 weeks ago. We actually had to drive him down separately because he couldn't drive. We couldn't both be on the track with one car, and he couldn't drive down by himself. So Vicky had to get driven down with him and then get a ride back from the track. So we're on the track and it is just dumping buckets. It's one of those like inch an hour type rainstorms on it. And so Liam's got his permit. He's out on the high banks of Pocono in this rainstorm.
You're in Pocono?
Yeah. Doing like 100 plus going around the high bank turn in the downpour rain as a 16-year-old. And I'm in with my instructor, and my instructor goes, "Wow, who taught you to trail brake?" And I looked at him. Well, I didn't look at him because I was in the middle of a turn. And I said, "What's a trail brake?"
My sense of self-preservation apparently just taught me that.
Yes, exactly. So, sometimes you may approach things in the nonlinear fashion that it's being described in an HPD, and you may actually naturally do something. And, you may do it well or you may do it poorly, but sometimes it just makes sense. And then there's other techniques that you guys are going to get to real soon.
And I'll tell you what else. You'll pick up a lot of stuff when you just start getting jealous of people who are faster than you in traffic. Like, oh my God, how did they get away with that? I've been braking here, and I just saw this car that's pretty similar to mine go shooting right past me and just brake for like a hair of a second and just take off.
Or the lights don't come on. And
like, that car doesn't even have brake lights. I'm gonna call a tower. I'm like, oh wait, that car does have brake lights. They're just not braking where I'm braking.
They're just not braking on that turn, and I am.
So you'll eventually teach yourselves a lot just by being jealous of what other people can get away with, and like how do they do that, and follow them around and try to learn. There's a lot of stuff in driving and racing that nobody's gonna sit you down in a classroom and tell you. Your ego is going to make you learn. You're like, screw that. I know that turkey. I'm faster than him. Let's go.
That's what got me in trouble.
Yeah. Well,
my ego.
Yeah. Well, that's what HPDE 1 and 2 or 4. You learn everything in a straight line, and you start learning to apply all your rage toward actual methodized driving. And then, by the time your rage catches up with your skill, you're out in the HPDE 3, you're in the Shark Tank. And by that time, that's all people are going to stay. They're not leaving. These people are going to stay in the DE world or maybe go racing. But they're at the point where they spend a bunch of money on that car. Their car's fast as they don't know anything because they're still crazy. And you're out there with them. And you better be fast by then. That's when you're going to start really picking up. Like, I can't believe that. I'm going to go out there and go way faster than that guy.
I got to get away from him.
Right.
There you go. All right, so single inputs for now, Vicky and Jen, but not forever.
Okie
Right.
doke. I'll remember that.
Training wheels.
Training wheels.
Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
Thanks, Ben.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson.
Hello.
Hello. We have, I think if you approach a racetrack, just about anybody can drive fast in straight lines. It's basically go straight. But I think the key is how do you handle the turns is what separates the better drivers from the not quite as good.
Huh.
And I don't know, just call me crazy.
It sounds plausible.
Well, so if we break down turns, and maybe we'll have to talk about some specific turns so we can actually know, a little concrete about it. So some of you at home, if you know these tracks, great. If you don't, you can take a peek at them.
Yeah, look them up.
Let's break down how to drive fast corners better.
Okay.
And conversely, maybe how to drive slow corners better. So let's start with a fast corner. What fast corner are you thinking about that's could be difficult for somebody to drive?
I think a lot of people, the fast corner that looms large in a lot of people's minds is turn 12.
I have one.
I was going to say turn 12 at Road Atlanta. Was that the one you were going to say?
I believe that is the one. Yes.
That's a tough one. It's really fast, and there's a lot going on that can affect how fast you can be through the corner. So yeah, that's a great one to talk about.
So turn 11 for those at home is a big downhill, like 10, 12 story downhill into a almost 90 degree right-hand turn. And
but like a really favorable radius. Like you can really carry a ton of speed through there.
Big wide sweeper, but on the outside of the turn, not very far away, is this big white concrete wall.
Right, and that gets in a lot of people's heads, right? It doesn't make a difference. It absolutely doesn't affect how you drive, but it gets right. It can occupy a ton of real estate in your head, right?
Oh, for sure. It's like the difference between if you play golf, driving a golf ball, and driving a golf ball over a lake.
Yep,
shouldn't matter, but sometimes it does. But anyway, so if I want to drive a fast corner better, what should I be trying to do? What should I be thinking about? What should I try not to do? Is there a way you approach fast corners, and is there a thing that you see when you're teaching people that hangs them up on fast corners?
At least in my experience, I'm often trying to get somebody to get in the gas quicker coming out of a fast corner. But in my mind, my own personal goal when I've got a fast corner coming up is I just want to lose as little speed as possible. Like I'm trying to just break my momentum the least amount as possible. So I'm trying to think of when's the last second I have to start losing speed to get in here? How much speed do I need to lose? How, can I get away with, will it help me to get all the way down to the apex? Or, if it's a fast corner, sometimes it might be a different line there right by the apex is where the grip is. There are several different things that go through your mind when you're negotiating a fast corner, but in my mind, they all lead to the central question of how can I lose the least amount of speed through here?
So sometimes you may be worried about carrying the speed in. Sometimes you may be worried about getting back to gas as early as possible.
Sure, like depending on the how the corner is radius. If it's a corner that's got a decreasing or an increasing radius, that's going to change how you approach or where the speed is going to be coming in or coming out, going in or coming out of the corner. Excuse me.
What about I guess it would be we're still at Road Atlanta. There's this turn 8 in the way back before 8 and 9, really, depending on the car. They aren't really turns, but you're trying to go as fast as you can. So what I was always trying to do for those turns was I was trying to keep my steering wheel as straight as possible and trying to make sure I scrubbed off as little speed as I could, because when you turn the wheel, you scrub off speed, and just trying to, get what little I could out of the car.
I think you're right. In a case like that with a straightaway that's pretty much labeled as a corner, you're just trying to kind of find the way through there that lets you just run it straight, right?
Yeah,
run it straight,
not uphill. Try to minimize the things working against you and maximize the things working against you. Like, I don't know if you've done Mid Ohio, but there's a long, big straightaway with a little kink in it, and some of it's uphill. So try to go the straight way, but try not to go uphill. And when you're in a car like ours that doesn't have a whole lot of horsepower, that little hill can hurt you.
That's true. So, when you're negotiating fast sections, at least all I'm trying to do is like, how can I do this closest to wide open?
Yeah.
Or can I do it wide open?
Yeah.
Sometimes stuff you can't. Like we were talking about running the straightaway or road Atlanta with a couple of kinks in it. You absolutely got to run it wide open, and there is a better way to do it than and there's a slightly less fast way to do it. But when you're talking about those turns that are labeled as turns that are pretty much straightaway, I'm just trying to just kind of run it as straight as I can. And like you said, there's some kind of big disadvantageous part of it being one side or the other. You would avoid that. If we watch an F1 race at Monaco, I think when they come out of casino and run down the hill, there's that little straightaway, but there's a huge bump in it, so you see all the guys swerve around the bump.
Go around it,
I mean?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all those sort of things come into play when you're trying to figure out the nuance of a fast turn.
Okay, so fast turns, I know I'm speaking to an anomaly here, but fast turns can be intimidating or scary even to a driver, especially when they don't know what they can do, or when they're relatively new and it's a new track, or if they're a relatively new driver. So any tips or approaches that you'd recommend for somebody working on a fast corner that's causing them issues?
Yeah, for sure. So I would definitely go back to somebody else's tape to begin with. Like even if you're at a track day, go to YouTube and you've got Wi-Fi there. Go find somebody's video in a similar car who's doing it faster than you are. I would say that's what I would do. I guess if I kind of hit that wall, like I can't figure out this certain thing, but I would go to tape to see what other people are doing. If I'm having a tough time doing it, I would go back out on track, and if I was having a tough time or not feeling very good about what I was trying, I would maybe try to take 10 miles an hour off, back out of your speed, sort of slow it down. A lot of times when I'm in the car with a person learning at the track and we get behind a slower car or into caution, I'd say, hey, great, here's the chance for us to look at this part of the track we've been having a problem with, and we can sort of do it in slow motion and try. And a lot of times it'll click in. So if you're having a tough time, maybe try to bleed some speed off and do it a little bit slower and see what that reveals to you.
And work your way up gradually, kind of thing.
Yeah. They sort of start building it back up, because sometimes you back some speed off, that may reveal, oh, here's what I was doing, and this is why it wasn't working. Definitely another thing I would do is go steal somebody else's technique. Go out on track with a car similar to yours and ride around with them and steal what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like I'll go learn. I'll go ride around with other people who are doing it well and see what's working for them all the time. I'm happy every time to steal somebody's technique. If they're doing it better than me, I will take it and run with it. That's why we're out there.
I agree. The one thing that I caution people against is don't always listen to people you don't know and trust in the paddock, because don't
listen to anybody. Don't listen to anybody. Go see what you can do with them on track.
Right. Because they may say, I'm flat through that turn.
And don't trust anybody. People say all kind of crap.
Yeah.
No, just to me, I use the evidence that I can gather on track is very important to me. Conversations I can have outside of the track or in the paddock are very entertaining to me.
Yeah, it's a verbiage you question, data you may trust, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. What about slow turns? Like, what would be a slow turn? Got any slow turns in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's turn 2 at Laguna Seca is a good one. If we're talking about
turn 2,
Atlanta,
yeah,
turn 7 is a good one to think about.
Yeah, I think Laguna may even be better because it's kind of I don't know, it might even be more than a 180. Looks like it. I mean,
and that's one of those.
It feels like it.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where you can come in and run it like a traditional decreasing radius line, like you come in really wide and work your way around to the very late apex.
Yeah.
Or it's one where you can treat it like a diamond. I think a lot of the horsepower cars can run that like a diamond. They just kind of go way down in straight and make a big hook, sort of not at the apex, but at sort of the outside, and then hook it back around for a super late apex that pretty much runs them kind of straight across into turn 3. Does that make sense?
Drag race in, drag race out.
Yeah, I mean, it must be nice, right?
I've heard. I've yet to experience, but I've heard.
That's not our world.
No.
You know, at least for me, with the time I did race there, I was in a Miata that was fairly healthy, and I think the fastest approach I ever got going with turn 2 was to sort of come straight across. I sort of ran it like turn 1 at VAR, but I sort of did a straight cut across broadside of the apex and then worked my way out to the exit.
So how would you? Oh, going back to the fast turns, I forgot one point that I was going to bring up. Sometimes, as you're working your way up, there may be some intestinal fortitude required to push a little bit harder, and sometimes you may find yourself having to push your pedal to the floor with your left foot on top of your right foot, because sometimes your right foot just isn't listening to you, because it doesn't look like to your right foot from the view it's got that down is a good idea. So these are things you're going to have to eventually get used to, but be careful with it. Don't push it too fast.
Yeah, definitely take things by degrees when it comes to fast corners and seeing what you can get away with. Always use cues. Use cues that you can pick up from other cars that are similar to you. Like for me, if I'm in a spec Miata, I'm not trying to go do the exact same thing I see a guy in a Viper with a bunch of aero doing. You know, so
They're almost the same.
be realistic with yourself and about your car, and just work your way up to what feels comfortable, and then maybe work your way up to what feels slightly uncomfortable if you're still getting outrun, and sort of see what's going on.
Yep. Okay, so back to the slow turn. What can you do to help you in general improve in what you would call a slow turn, especially if the slow turn's a long turn, like almost a carousel or something like that, where you're basically not only you're going slow, but you're going slow for a while?
Those are tough. I mean, that's some of those ones where you might get into talking about a maintenance throttle to get through. If it's a big, long, big radius, you might be just trying to find the right amount of throttle that will carry you through and push you out where you want to be in the track. It may not be that, you know, with a turn like you're describing, a big radius, like a lot of people talk about. We have a track / proving ground here called NC Car. It's got a big bowl. It's like a bowl. They call it the peanut.
Yeah.
And you might want to, depending on your car, the peanut might be fastest if you keep it tight. A different car, different tire might be fastest if you run the middle or try to hang it outside. But so in a corner like that, you want to find what's comfortable for your car and what's fastest. So a lot of that's trial and error. You might want to try to go into one of those kind of turns. You might want to go in sort of tight to the inside and let the car work its way out and see how that feels. Or you might want to try to go rim right all around the outside. You sort of go in with enough speed. Go in with enough speed that it pushes you sort of toward the outer part of the corner. Right. If you get out there and find that you might get out there and find that it feels good, but there's too many marbles to really do it well. So there could be there could be rolled up rubber out there that makes it uncomfortable, but that would be a good line. So you just kind of have to feel out and then see what factors are involved to finding your fastest way through a turn like that. I hate turns like that. I hate steady state cornering stuff like that, but it's out there every once in a while. There's a lot of that kind of stuff at NCM in the back half, right?
Right. And I think the key that I've found, and I'm not sure I'm doing it right yet, but the key that I found with the slow turns, especially as they get to be longer and slow turns, is you have to get really comfortable with the car being borderline stable. Like if you're stable, you're slow.
Yeah, if you feel comfortable in a section like that, you're probably not hitting it quite hard enough.
Yeah, there's more. So go get some more, and then find out where your more is, and if it's enough, you may be good. If it's not enough, you may need to, chat with friends or follow people through and say, this is the best I can do right now.
Right.
But there's more somewhere, and you sometimes you just got to go find it. And I think the intimidation factor in a slow turn is naturally lower, so you should be able to explore a little more instability and still be comfortable from a personal standpoint. Right.
A slow corner does give you a chance to kind of do a little more slow-mo stuff with probably less grave consequences. If you're going, if you're coming out of a corner going 40 or 50, like, I wonder if I can hit the gas here. Probably not going to be that bad versus a fast corner where you're like, I want to hit the gas a little bit before the apex, and then all of a sudden you're going 110 as you come out, and you push yourself off the track going 110 versus push yourself off the track going 50. That's a big difference. So
Usually,
you've got a little bit more leisure to play around in a slow corner and just see what works as far as it. But when it gets down to a fast corner, you have less time and more speed to sort of figure out what you have to do. So it's always,
right.
I will always go back to video if I'm not feeling good about it. I'll go back to somebody's video who I know is good to watch. Or I'll just go to school on people who are doing it better than me at the track.
Right. Any tips or tricks that you can think of, or is it really just a matter of, let's say, reps?
Very much of what we do, whether it's slow turns, fast turns, racecraft, a lot of that stuff comes down to seat time and repetition. I wouldn't be anywhere near as adept as I am, which I'm not that great, but I mean, I wouldn't have any of that stuff if I hadn't been out here doing this crap forever. So seat time and this time is what makes you fast. I would say, but
And being willing to try something different.
Yeah, you have to be willing to see what you can get away with. Like I'm obsessed with trying to know what I'm going to be able to get away with in traffic. So I'm going to try some weird stuff at a track day. I mean, tips and tricks I would say are if you're not confident and good enough yet, keep running DEs, and then go dominate at the races. But yeah, if I'm out there racing and not feeling like I'm competitive enough, I would go back to school and go back to DEs and work on it. I mean, I did a million hours at DE before I ever turned a competitive lap, wheel to wheel. So. And I showed up pretty good. But that's my recommendation. But as far as learning what you can get away with in fast corners, that's tough. It's nebulous. Like running a fast corner and knowing how to do it well and maximizing what you got, it just comes down to, I think you're right. It comes down to seat time. It comes down to confidence. It comes down to knowing the tire you're on pretty well and in your car. And like above all, if you're trying to figure it out at the track, go try to get on track near somebody who's doing it really well and learn what they're doing.
Yeah. I think the only other thing I would add to it, and I don't know anything else at this point that I could add to it, is I see a lot of people talking to them wherever I'm at the track, and they get married and fixated almost on the line, right?
No.
And the line, in my mind, can change depending on the day, depending on the conditions, depending on your car. And sometimes you got to go find out, especially certain turns where there's multiple lines. It just depends on what car you're in. You got to be willing to go out there and try something new, because you could find out that, a late apex in this turn is great for me, but it's much better if I diamond, or vice versa, or whatever.
Yeah. I think people who talk about the line should be saying the guideline, because there's a general line around the track, but it's dependent on so many different things. So if something slightly different than what people are telling you is the prescribed line is working for you, then and you're faster than people, then that's the line for you in your car.
Yeah. And there's certain turns where the variability from the line could be quite narrow, but there's other turns where it can be very, very wide. Turn
one from at VIR, which I always talk about, but is a great example of that. There's a really definitive horsepower line through that turn. Everybody who has horsepower, if you got more than like 300 horsepower, you run down in there and you make a diamond out of the corner and you come charging up out of the hole and you're good to go through turn three, into turn three. But if you're in a momentum car, you get in there, you do braking, and you turn square across and run straight across, and you sort of rim right around the exit to build your momentum, and that's how you do it. So there are two very distinct approaches, for example, between momentum cars and power cars and VIR in that corner. That's a good one. You can go watch plenty of video to clearly see the distinction between the two.
So when you say 300 horsepower, are you talking in a single car?
There's some cars that have like 500, 600, 700 horsepower. Like, believe it or not,
one car
out there, and they're next to you on the track as you pass them through the corners. That's the ones you're passing through the corners.
In one car. Wow,
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, talk to your local dealer. Talk to your local dealer and find out.
I mean, we had let's see, what did we have? We had probably 700 horsepower, but we had 4 cars.
That's a lot, even for 4 cars. That's a lot. We'd be having like 4 cars and like 330 horsepower between us.
Very well, sir. All right, we'll try one of those cars one day, maybe. That'd be kind of fun. All right, thanks, Ben.
All right.